prefer Maxwell House or UBAM, actually.
You prefer Maxwell House or UBAM?
Well, I work for Pratt.
Oh.
Much better coffee than Maxwell House.
Yeah, much better. All right, so we are looking at Psalm 22. Does everybody have Psalm 22 before them? In my Bible, it's page 1104. Is it the same in yours? Yeah. I think I have the same Bible as you have, exactly, except I just don't have the New Testament attached to it. I have that Bible. It's just I don't want to carry all that in my briefcase. I should, though, since we're going to be talking about the New Testament. Do you remember on the cross where Jesus says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani? And then that's translated for us in Matthew, I think chapter 27 in Matthew. That's translated for us as, my God, why have you forsaken me? Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. In distress, Jesus reverts to his native language there, which is what? Aramaic. Aramaic, right? In fact, you'll notice that Jesus is actually quoting Psalm 22, at the beginning of Psalm 22, but he quotes it in Aramaic. Let me say it again for you in Aramaic. Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. And now let me read the beginning of Psalm 22. Eli, Eli, lama azabtani. It's a little different, isn't it? It's just because the languages are a little different. Not a lot different, but a little different. And so clearly, Jesus is quoting on the cross Psalm 22. Now, we're not going to read that much of Psalm 22 tonight, but if you read about the first 20 verses of Psalm 22, you will be utterly amazed at how Psalm 22 relates to Jesus' experience on the cross. I believe Jesus quotes the first verse, or in Hebrew, the second verse, the beginning of the psalm, as a pointer text. Do you know what a pointer text is? It was a rabbinic method, and others as well, of referring the hearer or the reader to a passage of Scripture. You wouldn't take the time to quote the whole passage of Scripture, or you wouldn't take the space to write the whole passage of Scripture, but you would quote a part of it, and you would allow that part to bring to the mind of the hearer or the reader the rest of the text, so that the hearer would know that you are referring to that passage. It'd be like if we were having a conversation and I said, well, for God so loved the world, right? That would, you would know where I was referring from, and the rest of that context would come into your mind. And I think that Jesus quotes the beginning of Psalm 22 as a pointer text to refer those who heard him to the content of the larger context, right, of the psalm. And if you wonder about that, later take your English Bible and read about the first 20 verses of the psalm and hang on to your chair, because it's very amazing. But if you look at Psalm 22, an interesting thing in the Psalms, many of the Psalms have a superscription. There is a line before the Psalm actually starts, a line of attribution many times. In your English Bible, that's just going to be there, above the Psalm, and it's not going to get a verse number. In our Hebrew Bible, that superscription gets a verse number. So verse 1 in Psalm 22 in our Hebrew Bible is the superscription. And it makes it a little bit confusing because then verse 2 in the Hebrew Bible corresponds to verse 1 in your English Bible. Right? Yeah. But here, if you look at Psalm 22, let's read the superscription. Let's pronounce the superscription and go around the room. And if the word has a makaf, then you pronounce the whole thing, the two words that are connected to the makaf. Who wants to try the first word?
First word or first verse?
Both. The first word of verse 1, Psalm 22. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't mean the whole first verse, I just mean the first word. I probably get what you're asking. Well, close. Lamed, Mem, Nun, Sade, Chet. We have a patak, a silent shavah, another patak, a tsere, and a furtive patak. Notice in our Bible text how the furtive patak is printed a little bit over to the right and not directly under the chet. See that? So that gives you a little bit of help with knowing that's a furtive patak. This first word's a little bit difficult. You want to take another shot at it, Les? All right, close. Anybody want to help him? This is a word that happens all over in the Psalms, in the superscription. No? Yeah, that's all right. It's good to try. All right, somebody do the first syllable. Do it syllable by syllable. Lam. There's a silent shavah there, so you got lam. Next syllable. Na. Then the last syllable. Now the tsere is an A sound with a furtive patak. Seach. Right, so lam na seach. Lam na seach. Lam na seach. Huh? Oh, what's it mean? I haven't sliced it yet. No, I'm kidding. Well,
Repeats itself a lot.
what do you suppose the first letter is?
It's from.
Oh.
No. That's lavav. That's lave or lavav. Lamed. Right. Yeah, it's the lamed preposition. Right? Remember those prepositions we learned? All right. So this is for the choir director. Remember, these are songs. Right? For the choir director. Okay, who wants to try the next word with the makaf there? Okay, all. Close, but it's a segol, an S sound at the end. Tav, ayelet. Okay, so this is all ayelet. So lamnat seach, all ayelet. What does all mean? What kind of word is all? Well, you're in the right kind of word. It's not two, though. It's not two. No. The four is the lamed. All. Remember el all?
Two.
No. No. Upon. On or upon. So now, what this is then the rest of it's a musical instrument. It's for the choir director upon, well, whatever it is. We don't really know what it is. It's an ayolet ha-shachar. So upon the ayolet ha-shachar, whatever that is. We're not sure what that is. Well, shofar would be shofar. Because we know that one, right? So on some musical instrument, whatever it is. So for the choir director upon some musical instrument. And now we have the word that starts with a mem. How would you say that?
Mem, Zayin,
Mem, Zayin, Mem, Cholam, and a Resh. Cholam, Vav, right? And a Resh. You say it? There it is, Mizmor. Right? Mizmor. Mizmor. Mizmor is a psalm. All right, and what's the next word? Lamed Dalet, Vav Dalet.
But you have a comments.
Huh? No, that's a Dalet at the end there. And a Vav.
That's not a rash. What do you think the Lamed is? Okay, preposition. What do you think Dalet, Vav, Dalet spells with those vowels? David. La David. So Mizmor La David, which you see all over the place. For example, on the other page, look at Psalm 23. Mizmor La David. All right. So this is a lamed of authorship here. So a psalm by David. Because usually lamed means to or toward. Well, it could be a psalm for David, written for David, possibly. But Jesus in the New Testament attributes some psalm. I can't remember which one it actually is. Some psalm with this superscription to the writing of David. So that seems to mean that Jesus would have understood this La David as being a lamed of authorship. So here we have Lam Natsea for the choir director upon the Ayolet Ha-Shachar, the instrument, a psalm of David. All right? Who would pronounce the first phrase of verse 2? What's the L underneath? Where's the L marker underneath? That's not on our bell chart.
Underneath what?
Underneath the llama, it looks like an L.
Oh, in verse 2? In verse 2?
Mm-hmm.
It's an accent. You'll find it on your accent chart if you look for it.
Is that this?
No, that is this one right here.
Oh, no.
Now you got to remember, we were looking at the common accents, but we need to turn over to poetry accents for the Psalms, right? And if you look at the conjunctive, the conjunctive accents, in other words, number 13 on your list on the Psalm side, and it's the same thing as number 19 on the other side, but that's the strongest conjunctive accent. So that means that there's the opposite of the strongest break after that word, the strongest connection, right? So those two words are connected very strongly together. There's no break at all between those two words, according to the accent. Anybody want to read that first up to the space there?
Hello.
Okay. Eli.
Lama.
Yep. No, that'd be the Aramaic. This sounds a little different. There's no Samic here.
Oh, that's a
Ayin. Yeah, noon and yod at the end. Azav Tani. Azav Tani or Azav Tani. Okay, so Eli, we know Ale, right? What is Ale? God, and then the E part is a suffix that is a first person singular suffix. So God of me, or my God, right? And it's repeated. So Eli, Eli, my God, and that'd be an evocative, wouldn't it? Right? And grammatically, because it's direct address. Lama is why, and azav is the verb. The first three consonants are the root of that verb. Okay, azav means to forsake, and the ta at the end of that is an ending, a perfect tense ending, to give it the second person masculine. Why did you, second person, you forsake? And then the ni, and you can see the similarity with the ni and the e at the end of God. Why did you forsake me? Yeah. Ani is I. Here you have that just kind of part of it stuck on the end of the word, right? See how you're sticking stuff on the words front and back, possibly, right? So my God, why did you forsake me? The next phrase, Rachok. Can you see that? Rachok Mishuati. Mishuati, better accent. Mishuati. Divrei Sha'agati. All right. Rachok means far. Now, that meme on the front of that word, what is that meme going to be? What could it be? We actually know what this is. What kind of word is that meme there? Huh? It's from. It's a preposition min, but here it's stuck on the word, so it's just me, right? So if you take the meme off, okay, and the T is that first person, the E thing, is the first person suffix again. You get Mishua T, but Yeshua, what does that sound like? Yeshua, that's where we get the name Jesus. What does that mean?
Joshua.
Could mean Joshua or Jesus.
Lord saves.
Joshua is Yehoshua, but it's really from the same word. It means what?
Lord saves.
Getting well with salvation. Okay. So here, min, from salvation, and the T part is because of the suffix, the first common singular suffix, my. So far from my salvation. See how that's working? Now, we need to supply the verb. Sometimes the verb isn't actually expressed. Same thing in Greek. So we need to supply the verb. Far from my salvation are. Now, take a guess at what divrei is. Well, take the yod off the end, because that's the construct form of that. We haven't learned that yet. What does that look like? Word. Right. Well, here we have a masculine plural construct. So that means that you're going to add of after the word. So, far from my salvation are the words of. Now, this next word, see, you have the same ending as you had for salvation, right? See that same ending? So that's going to be my again. Far from my salvation are the words of my groaning, you might say. Shahagati. The whole thing? Oh, you mean in English? Okay. Far from my salvation are the words of my groaning. So, my God, why have you forsaken me? Far from my salvation are the words of my groaning. All right. Now, verse 3. See this? Elohai, what does that remind you of? Elohim, that's right. But here you have that first common singular ending again, my, right? We've seen that over and over. So what's this mean? My God. But instead of being El, Eli, now it's Elohim, my God. Elohai, right? And so this is an address. My God, Echra, Kara is the verb, and that's an imperfect first person with the aleph. That's what that aleph means on the front of that. So that aleph is a prefix, right? Kara means to call out. So, my God, I call out. Okay, now look at Yomam. Now, if that had a feminine ending, it'd be Yomama. All right, but it doesn't. So, oh, that tape's not on, is it? That tape's on, isn't it? All right, but if you take the last meme off of there, what is that word? Yom. What does that mean? Day. Well, Yomam means daily, right? So, my God, I call out daily. Va. And, okay, you'll be surprised at how used to that you're going to get. Right? And, what does it occur? Some 50,000 times, I think you said in the Old Testament. All right, so you'll know that one. Va, and lo. Valo. Lo, you'll get very used to too. That's not. Not. There are two words for not, and that's one of them. All right, so, my God, I call out daily, and now, ana, see the ayin, nun, he? Ana means to answer. The tav is a prefix for the verb forms. We don't know that yet. You have to trust me on this stuff. And you, and the tav gives you the person a number, second person singular, right? And you do not answer. So, my God, I call out daily, and you do not answer. Va. And. Laila. Do we know Laila? Night. That's right. Yom. And notice the poetry here. Yom, daily. Yomam, daily. And Laila, night. Remember Cheers? Does the word Laila remind you of anybody on Cheers? Lilith. If you don't think that there are a lot of Jewish people that write for these television shows, look up in your lexicon, BDB. Look up Lilith. Because one day I was watching Cheers when I was in seminary, and I was been taking Hebrew, and I thought, Lilith, that sounds like Lila. So I looked it up in BDB. I'm not going to tell you what it means, but you will laugh so hard when you see what that means. Lilith. If you look that up in BDB, it'll be good practice for you. Believe me, the payoff for looking that up will be well worth it.
I thought that was Eve's predecessor.
Huh?
That was the liberal version of Eve's predecessor. That Lilith, the little affair that was where it started.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a Jewish mythology thing, and it's in your Hebrew lexicon. All right, so Laila is light, and at night, and not, and Dumia is silence. Now look at Li. Tell me if you think you can figure out what Li is. What do you think the Lamed is? You have two things that we've been dealing with over and over in these verses stuck together. What is the Lamed?
Where are you at?
Well, I'm at the end of verse 3. Okay. Velayla, Velo, Dumia, Li. What do you think the Lamed is? Right? What do you think the E is? My, or me. So Li is for me. Right? Okay, that's a preposition, Lamed, and the suffix, first common singular suffix, me, or my. Look how similar it is to on the end of the first word of verse 3, Elohai. See that? Now Elohim is plural, so that's why you get the patak there, but the yod, right, is the same. And it's the same as Eli, it's exactly the same. See that? See that suffix right there? So now I just have Lamed as a preposition and a suffix put together to mean for me. See? So, and at night, and Dumia means silence. And I have to supply a verb here, the verb of being, which is typical. I mean, it's, not unusual in other words. And at night, and there was no silence for me. Which is interesting, right? Because he says, my God, I call out daily and you do not answer. And at night, and there was no silence for me. What does he mean, silence for me?
Calling out.
Huh?
Silence of his calling out.
Okay, silence of his calling out, or silence of his groaning, or rest. That's not the word for peace, but you get the idea. Far from my salvation are the words of my groaning. His calling out to God of his groaning never ceased all night. He didn't have a restful night, in other words. All right. Verse 4, Va, and Atah. You know that one, Tim? You. See, very good. Okay, and you, Kadosh. Kadosh. You know that word.
Probably purifying.
Close. Holy. Kadosh. Remember Isaiah 6. Kadosh. Holy. That's because there's not a. We learned a comparative and superlative. No, but there isn't a with men. But there isn't a er holier or est holiest in Hebrew. The way you do that, one way to do that anyway, the comparatives, good, better, best. The way you do the better or best is to repeat. King of kings, right, is a king or king than the other king, right? Is a superior king. Well, when you repeat holy 3 times, holy, 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 that's a way of saying holy s, period. Right? But here it says, and you, and I have to supply the verb again, right? The verb of beings don't get expressed every time, but I have to supply that. And you are holy. Now, see that little caret thing on the bottom there, that accent that points up? That's called an atnach. Bear that in mind. Remember that, because that is showing you the middle part of the verse. If you look in your accent chart, we won't take the time to do it, but that's the second strongest disjunctive accent. The first strongest is the one we see at the end of every line, the saluk sot pasuk, like a period. The second strongest is showing us the middle break of the line. So, you are holy, comma. And that helps you in translating, because we know that the next word isn't going with that phrase. Right? You are holy. Yoshev, that's a participle from yashav to sit, sitting, or in this context, enthroned. Enthroned, tihalot. Tihalot is plural. Look at the very top of the page in the middle, the word up there without vowel points. That's tihalim. That's the Hebrew name of this book, Psalms. Tihalim. Do you see where I'm looking right there?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That literally means praises. Okay? That's a masculine form, Tihalim. Can you see that? Right? Because of the endings we learned, remember? Okay. Look, that's the same word, but with a feminine plural ending, Tihalot. Right? Praises.
Okay, why?
Well, I don't know.
Context.
Well, it just is feminine here. The good thing is we don't have to know why, we just have to know that it is. Right? So, sitting, and we have to supply upon the praises of Israel. What's Israel? Israel. Enthroned, you are holy, enthroned upon the praises of Israel. Okay, now verse 5. Baka. Okay, now, what do you suppose that bait is?
What are you doing?
Hand by or with.
That's right. It's the preposition ba. Okay, and the ka is a suffix. This is a funny word. I'll get back to you in a second. The ka is a suffix, a second singular suffix. So, in you. Okay.
How do you get that sound out of a dalet with a tuki?
Call it where?
The first word.
Oh, that's not a dalet. That is a final cough. Clue to the final cough. Remember how we had the two dots in the final cough when there wasn't a vowel under it?
I don't see it.
Well, okay, that's a shavah on the final cough. We don't have a shavah here. We have a comet. But look how the comet is up in the cough. Just like this.
Right there.
And verse 5? No. It's a final comma. It's long. See how long? See how it goes below the line?
Never mind.
You got to hate that when that happens. But see the clue to that final cough is that the vowel point is up in it instead of down on the line.
Yeah.
Just like those two dots were up in it. Okay. So baka. In you, baku. Batahu. Why? Well, it's either batahu or bothu. I think it's batahu because comet is going to be a long vowel, and so that shavah has to be vocalized. Either that or you can pronounce it as a comet skatuf and not vocalize it. I'm not really sure how that's pronounced because of that. But I know what it means. In you, it means they trusted. Now, you should be able to figure out something of this word. Avotenu. Okay? You see the word avot, don't you? Now, it's a defective spelling because we're used to saying it with a cholam vav, and there's just a cholam there, right? So, avot. So, just look at avot. What does avot mean? Av. Father. Avot. Fathers. Okay. And then the tenu part is
We.
Yeah, it is we. It's us. It's our. Okay, our fathers. Exactly. Now you see how we're.
Weird.
Huh?
It's feminine, right?
Yeah, I know. Avot. Fathers. You think the last word in Hebrew that would have a feminine ending, or feminine looking ending? It's really masculine, but it looks feminine, right? A feminine looking ending would be father, right? But I don't know. Somebody was just trying to have fun that day or something. I don't know. Somebody was sitting around after they got kicked out of the Garden of Eden and said, "What do we ever call the old man?" That's silly.
That's why he's saying it's not in the Bible anymore.
yeah. Anyway, verse 5. In you, now remember, the subject is going to come after the verb. In you our fathers trusted. Now you see the atnak? So I know, that's a complete phrase then. Okay. All right. Now they trusted, and they did not fail, or something like that. So interesting how he's saying, okay, God, you're not answering me, but you are holy, enthroned upon the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted, they trusted, and they did not fail. So what is he saying? That there must be a reason that God is not answering, that is holy. Right? Remember, this is a Psalm of David. It applied to David's life, but it's also a messianic psalm and applies to Jesus, doesn't it? Okay, verse 6. Elecha Well, we could go on and on here, but I'll pronounce verse 6 for you just because we started it. Elecha za'aku vanim latu baka, and we see that's from the same word from the beginning of verse 5. Baka bakhu valo, and what does lo mean? Boshu. We're on that time. Let's pop over to Genesis 1 again. Do a little bit more practice in that. In fact, I was hoping we could quit by 9 o'clock, and it's 9. But let's just do a little bit in Genesis chapter 1. You have that on? Okay, good. All right. So, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim va'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Va'haaretz hayata tohu vavohu and choshek al panei tahom. Va'ruach, not familiar? Va'ruach Elohim marachefet al panei hamayim. So, and the earth was, Now this is the verb of being here, a form of the verb of being. It's supplied here. Remember how many times we had to supply it in the psalm? Here it's supplied. Hayata. All right. Now that's a feminine form. That's a third person feminine form. Perfect. Haya is the vocabulary form of that, but that's the verb of being. So, and the earth was tohu vavohu, formless and void.
Is it without or with?
Well, it's just formless and void.
Or just formless and void?
Yeah. Bohu means void. And darkness was on Panei. We had that in that last chapter we looked at. On the face, right? On the surface. On the face of the deep. And what's Varuach? And the Spirit, Elohim, of God, Marachefet, hovered upon the face, the surface of Hamayim. What's Hamayim? The water. You see the hay with the patak and the dogish forte in the main? That's the form of the the definite article, isn't it? Right? And we know Mayim is water. That's a dual form, isn't it? Right? All right. Verse 3. Vayomer Elohim Yahi Or Vayehi Or. You can hear the poetry in this, can't you? This is prose, You know, in the psalm, we were in poetry. We didn't talk much about the poetry, but that was poetry. This is prose, but you can see this is very poetic prose, isn't it? Tohu, vavohu, and vayehi-or, yehi-or, vayehi-or. So you can see it's a little bit poetic. So, and God said, let there be, and that's a form of the verb to be as well. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. I'm trying to see the accent. No, it's Vayarei Elohim et Haor. Everybody follow me? You able to follow me as I read it? Okay, I'm on the first part of that line. Not the beginning of verse 5, but there is a 5 there on the beginning of that line. You see it? Haor. What do you think Haor means? The light. Because remember, or up here was light, so Haor. Okay, where's the dogish forte?
It's not there because it's a guttural.
It's not there because it's a guttural, and so then what happened? The patak becomes a comet. See? This is a piece of cake once you get used to it, right? Well, you know, several years of studying this. Well, you know, it really needs to be a lifelong thing that you chip away at, you know. I got with, when I was working on my PhD, I got with a couple of guys who were working in the Old Testament side. I did the Old Testament in the New, so I was kind of in both. And so we got together once a week or twice a week, I can't remember which now, for months. And we just read Hebrew, read, because I wanted to practice, you know. So I got with the Old Testament guys who were doing that, and I got with them, and we just read Hebrew till it was coming out of our ears, you know. And it was a great thing to do, working together, because you help one another, you know. If one person is struggling with it, chances are the other guy is going to say, oh, that's this. Oh, yeah, I remember. You know, then you go on. Okay, so Haor Ki Tov, Vayavdel Elohim Bain Haor Uvain HaChoshech. All right, verse 4. And he saw Elohim, God. Remember, the subject is usually coming after the verb. So, and God saw Et Haor. What is that Et within the cave? I'm at the end of the line in verse 4. The third word of verse 4. No, Et. And God saw Et Haor. Look at the Maketh. Those two have to go together. Et Haor.
Saw the light.
God saw the light. But what is the Et word? No, that's Vayarei. No. No. Et. Don't break my heart here now. That was just in tonight's chapter.
I forgot about it.
Huh? Remember the thing called and that's part of the vocabulary too. Remember the thing called the definite object marker? Definite direct object marker? And Haor is a definite direct object, right? So we get to have that. That's just like in verse 1, Va'et Haaretz, right? Okay, so when God saw the light, Ki, that it was good. Pause, because of my ought right there, okay, right? And he divided, God, he didn't divide God, but God divided Bain. Do we know that one? We know that one because that's... No? No? Yeah. Between. God divided between Haor, the light, Uvain, and between HaChoshech, the darkness. All right? Verse 5, and I think we've done up to here now, right, before. Now maybe we're getting something. Vayichra Elohim Laor Yom Valachoshek Kara Laila Vayehi Erev Vayehi Boker Yom Echad. Right? verse 5. And he called, and God called, right? Second word, God. And God called Laor, the light. Now that's kind of odd because we have Lamed, which means to or toward. So, and God called toward the light, literally, Yom. So it's almost like God is, looking at the light and saying, Yom. God called the light day. Valachoshek. Now this is Lamed preposition, so we have Va and the conjunction, the Lamed preposition, and then Choshek, a word which we've seen just before, right? So, and to the darkness, literally, Hara, he called Lila, night. Now we saw that in that psalm, didn't we?
Is it saying call toward or I'm interested in that. I mean, is it saying call toward?
Well, at the end of the day, he's naming them. He's naming the light period, Yom, and the dark period, Lila.
You just seem to be, there's a different emphasis when I thought about it. When you call them, it seems more personal when it says, call the light day, call for the light day, like you said. There was more of a, a movement of perspective that, I don't know, just had a different emphasis on it.
Well, there seems to be more action involved in it, but I think it's probably idiomatic at that point. It'd be nice to look that up in a syntax grammar and see what's going on there, because I suspect something's going on there that I'm not remembering probably. But anyway, the bottom line point is that he is calling, naming the light day and the darkness Lila. All right? And now, Vayahi, and this is a word that happens all the time, and so you'll remember it, Vayahi, and it came about, but notice how that's connected with Erev, with the Mekef, right? And Erev is evening, and evening came, and Boker, morning, came. So, and evening came, and morning came, Yom Echad, day 1. Now, there's a big debate even among evangelical Christians now about what the word Yom means, and is this a literal 24-hour period, or could this be a long period of time? And the fact of the matter is that the word Yom in Hebrew is a lot like the word day in English. It can be, day can be used as, the daytime, right? Do this before the day is out, before dark, right? Or a day, 24-hour period. Or it could be, in the day of the dinosaur, a period of time. Now, it could be, Yom could be used in any of those ways, really, in Hebrew. How is it used here? Well, how are you going to determine how it's used here? Context, right? Context. Well, a lot of that depends on how you see the Bible and science interacting, right? But to me, the text seems to almost strain itself toward a 24-hour period, doesn't it? God looked at the light and said, Yom. God looked at the darkness and said, Lila. And it was evening, and it was morning. Hello, in Jewish mind, the day starts in the evening, doesn't it? Right? So it was evening, and it was morning. Yom Echad. Well, you might say that it's possible that it could be a longer than 24-hour period here. Now, I might agree with that. But just looking at the text, it seems to me that the most natural reading of the text is a 24-hour period.
There's some place in Deuteronomy, I think, I've read it, I just wish I could think of the verse where Moses says, he's talking about the creation period, he said 6 days. And at that point, the context seemed even more clear that it was not 6 periods, it was 6 24-hour days.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it depends, and I don't think that, if you're taking this as periods, that you're heretical or evil or anything like that. It just depends on, what's going to push you most. Yes, but
We haven't done the numbers yet, but how does this number 1 differ from the work on first? First grade, second grade, third grade.
Well, this is a cardinal number 1. Echad.
So they don't have ordinal numbers in Hebrew.
We've always used it as odd for one or first or
What was saying,
convert.
in one of the end chapters of the book, it was saying, little sections that they don't, what they do numbers is the alphabet.
There's no written number.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right about it.
Except that it only 400.
I know that was kind of odd, wasn't it? Yeah.
Only place to stop is how do you get to 1 million using 400?
Yeah, right. So it's kind of interesting. Oh, by the way, at the end of verse 5, you see that pay right there? That indicates, and that's not in the original text probably, but that indicates a break of sorts. And there's another pay at the end of verse 8. So those are indicating pauses or breaks in the text. That's not the way they've broken the paragraph here, but it's almost really a paragraph break is what it is. And if you look, you will see, just look on page 3. In the right-hand margin, you see that somic at the top there. That's another break indicator. You see, and if you go along, you can see those pays and somics in the text. All right, cool. Any questions? So remember, we're going to have a big Mondo mega quiz, massive thing, almost like a midterm thing. Not to say that the quiz will necessarily be long or take you a long time to do, but it'll cover a lot, right? So that you'll be able to use this time very joyfully to study. Remember, pronunciation. It's kind of hard to do that by yourself, but when you're doing the vocabulary on the computer, experiment with that and try to bone up on the pronunciation things and stuff like that, because that's really important. Through what we covered today, through 6, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah.
We should be ideally 2-8, capital 2-8 for
and I've read through 8, right. Remember, the number one thing you want to nail is the vocabulary. So now you got tons of vocabulary. And, get those cards out and be cranking on that vocabulary. Now, I hope you can see as you're going through the text that if you couldn't pick out the vocabulary, you'd be toast, right? You got to be able to see the lamids and the baits and those sorts of things that aren't part of the stem. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong, but you'll get there eventually. But if you have to look at every word 3 or 4 times because you're not dealing with those things, that's not fun. You know what I mean? So you want to be able to get those things as quickly as you can when you're looking at the text. But again, we're very new at this. I mean, this is just the 3rd time in beginning Hebrew, right? And it's going to, if you really want to get this down, it's probably going to take you 5 years of study. Any language you learn, it's probably going to take you 5 years of study to really get it down. Right? But like we said, if it were easy, everybody'd want to be a pastor, and that would be disastrous, wouldn't it? So, now, will you be helped if you just take beginning Greek and you don't spend 5 years studying? Yeah, you'll be able to really relate to what the commentaries are saying a lot there. So it just, it's going to be fun what we go through, and we go through the text and all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fun, and you'll be really helped by taking beginning Hebrew. And if that's all the further you ever take it, you'll be helped in your understanding of the Bible. in your understanding of Christianity, in your understanding of your pastor, hopefully, in your understanding of commentaries, all that kind of stuff, you'll be helped tremendously. Right? But the more time you spend, months and years wise, the better you will be. And if you want to be able to pick up your Bible and read it, really, depends on what your vocational goals are. My goal was to be able to pick up my Bible and do well enough so that I could prepare sermons and Bible studies without killing myself. And I can do that, so I'm happy. But to get there will probably take you 4 or 5 years to study as you go. But that's okay. I mean, what else do we got to do before Jesus comes back? What better do we got to do than study Hebrew, right? I mean, what else you going to do? Go shopping?
The word Selah, is it Selah or
Salah?
Is it a Siri or I guess that's Seagull.
That's a pause.
January 9th.
So it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to take this. Trying to think, is this the group Selah? I've heard people across the way. I don't know what it is.
I'm going to look at it and text me.
It's all in the Psalms. It's all